Good morning, Jamie.
Good
Thank you
morning.
for taking the time to actually share your experiences with FinDock. Really appreciate it as the first and launching customer in Norway. But before we deep dive in decisions and experiences with FinDock, could you maybe introduce yourself and the NRC a little bit?
Of course. So my name is Jamie Sletten, and I'm the Director of Donor Management at the Norwegian Refugee Council, otherwise known as NRC. NRC is an organization, it's a humanitarian organization, independent. We work in about 40 countries around the world. And in 2022, we supported over 10 million people. And the focus of the work of NRC is to help people that are forced to flee.
This is great. Thank you for that. Um, So I think almost a year ago we had a first contact, and you were reaching out to FinDoc to see if FinDoc could be a solution for the NRC in Norway. Uh, can you maybe share some of your considerations in looking at FinDoc for the NRC?
Sure. So maybe to set a little bit of context there, I started in this role about a year ago, and it was quite soon into that process that we could see that one of our greatest vulnerabilities was in the way that we manage payment orchestration for all of our donors. We have regular donors in multiple countries, multiple currencies, and multiple payment service providers. And the way that that payment orchestration was being managed, even though we had Salesforce in the center and many payment service providers on the outside, all of the payment orchestration was being managed through a package of custom integrations.
Mm.
Those custom integrations over the last year have been our absolute greatest problem, our greatest headache. It has required immense resources and effort and time from both my team and consultants that we use. So as we looked at what was the possibilities to replace these, we considered multiple scenarios. One scenario was to rebuild them, to try and make them more robust, more resilient. But after some evaluation, our assumption and prediction was we would simply end up in the same problem at a later point in time. So we began searching the market to find out, is there actually a product that solves this for us? And what we discovered, at least from our point of view, was that this market almost didn't exist. This idea of having payment orchestration between Salesforce and payment service providers was something quite new, quite unique, but quite typical, especially of nonprofit organizations that were using something like Salesforce, whereas other organizations were maybe using their financial system. So as we started researching possibilities for products to fill this gap, it was then that we came across FinDock. This in any organization and any use of technology, it's my belief at least that you buy it before you build it, unless it's something that's going to be a competitive differentiation. Building these integrations, there was no advantage of doing this ourselves if I could buy the product. And it's not just to have the product, but it's to consider the entire life cycle of maintaining that product over time. Every time Salesforce changes something, that integration has to be updated. Every time any one of those payment service providers changes something, and here you have regulatory and compliance and the whole payment and fintech industry evolving really quickly. That's going to be a very complex integration to maintain. So as we further investigated and came into the discussion with FinDock, we found that it fit our needs. It's a product, it's a service, it's maintained, it's updated, and we don't have to be the ones that worry about taking care of the integrations or taking care of the compliance and the updates over time. We can use it as a service, and that was our goal.
Great, thanks. That's a really clear story in choosing a product over a custom solution. And this is something that we actually see in many countries where we are entering and adding new payment methods or new payment channels. This is one of the main challenges that organizations have. Uh, Also, of course, for Norway, we did not support the VIPs and the Aftale Giro. Um, and actually, we work together with you and your partner to actually create these or develop these methods. Can you maybe share something about your experience working with FinDock in this creation or developing of this new payment method, but also now because you're already implementing it and parts of it are already live?
Yeah. So let's go back a little bit to the beginning of the early discussions with FinDock in the scope of work that we were going to do. Now, as I said earlier, we have regular donors in multiple countries, and the parts that we have in other countries where we're using Go Cardless, this was the first focus, but this is not the majority of our donors. So we had issues there. We needed to resolve them. And this is where we also, in partnership with FinDock, added the additional payment schemes for Go Cardless for both Euro and Swedish krone. But that's still not the majority of our regular donors. The majority of them sit in Norway, even though we are a global organization. Here we use VIPs and direct debit in the Norwegian banking system, otherwise known as Avtale Giro. And through the contract preparation and the scope clarifications, there we came to an agreement with FinDock to put these additional connections in place to cover the Norwegian market and to cover the majority of our donor audience. When we have then went live with Go Cardless, so this we did several weeks ago. So Go Cardless for both Euro and SEK is working extremely well. Now we're in the final testing stages for VIPs and Avtale Giro, and our expectation is to go live with this in the very near future.
Great, that's good to hear. And it's also interesting what you're saying with these different kinds of payment methods and payment channels, especially if you work in multiple countries, is that we see many organizations actually have different solutions, but also not a unified payment data model. So payment data is resisting in different silos, databases, all these kind of things, and it's not enriching your 360 view. Okay, good. And the first experiences with the Go Cardless integration are received well in your team as well?
I would say so. To give a really specific example, one of the members of my team who has worked daily since he started with the team over or about a year ago, his effort has been constantly looking at the data between Salesforce and Go Cardless, checking the quality, doing the reconciliation. It takes so much effort and time and cost related to that. As they were updating and reviewing the payment schedules for Go Cardless here a couple of weeks ago, I overheard him saying, "What am I supposed to do now?" And how can you have a better validation that things are working well than something like that? Of course, we still have a ways to go to increase the automations, follow it, and get the rest of the connectors in place. But we need to be able to focus on taking care of our donors, increasing the donor engagement, donor loyalty. We can't be using our effort on managing payments. That's an unnecessary place for us to use our time, our people, and our spend.
Yeah, yeah, it's great to hear, and it's really good if your colleagues or employees can actually add value with the work instead of doing things that should or could be automated or should go by itself. Great. So you're using parts of it. Can you maybe share a little bit on if you're looking at Salesforce and FinDock and how these also would contribute to the long-term goals of NRC?
Now, I think there's several places where it contributes to the long-term goals in quite different ways. So let's take the first one. Even though the payment connectors that we have begun putting in place are based on the payment service providers that we're actively using today. So that solves the immediate issue, solves the immediate problem that we have. But once we have implemented FinDock, then it opens up the possibilities for taking advantage of the other connectors that are there also. So we've added on Stripe already. We're in the process of putting PayPal in. As we add on these additional connectors, which are basically there and ready for us to use, that helps us reach a broader market who wants to use a different type of payment mechanism. And it allows us to go into other countries for recruiting donors where other payment mechanisms are more typical, like PayPal and potentially the use of that in the United States. So that's on one side of it. The other is probably repeating what I said earlier, and that's to make sure that we're using our resources and our time into something that is truly value added towards the engagement with our donors, building donor loyalty, making a connection to our donors that's an extension of the mission of our organization. When I have to put half of my resources into managing payments, then I'm not able to put the effort where it truly should be placed.
Yeah. And you also use like the giving pages, the online donation pages that are part of the FinDock proposition.
Yep.
I think we could even maybe share a link in the chat to show you and people can use it. Although it's not the Norwegian one yet, right? But how are they working, or how do you experience them?
Very positive. So even though my team is the one who takes care of the systems and the platforms and the donor communication, we work really closely with our global fundraising team and our public engagement team who take care of reaching out to the donors to do the recruiting, to do the initial communication. Things that were done in the past as custom landing pages to manage the donations in multiple languages, in multiple currencies, in multiple countries where we had to develop these landing pages. All of this is being converted over now to using giving pages. So they're the giving pages, and the response of the use of them from the rest of our organization is really positive. They're fast, they're effective, they can be set up and deployed quickly, and we have multiple ideas of how we can even do this further in the future for campaigns, for crisis situations, and even looking at the possibility of using them for people who contact us and say, we want to run our own little fundraising event. Maybe we can use a giving page as a tool or a part of a toolkit to hand out to them where they can then facilitate that.
Great. Not even live for over a month with only a part and already such a compelling story. Thank you very much, Jamie, and I wish you all the good luck with the last steps in going live with Aftale, Giro, and Vips. And really thank you for your experience and insights you are willing to share with all the other attendants of this webinar.
Thanks for having us join and the good cooperation.
Thanks. Okay. See you later.